Welcome to the studio. I'm Keme Nzerem, and our panel is transforming in a downturn, what to keep and what to cut. It's not been an easy year for business or for tech, as anyone watching will tell you. I want to start with Ankur Anand, who was at Manpower. You've got a great global overview of the situation. How do colleagues, how do businesses, how do leaders in tech and in information, how do you do more with less? Because that's the situation we're facing, isn't it?
Indeed. I think in Manpower Group, it's a business which is operating with a very low margin, because staffing business is generally a low margin business. So it's always a challenge for us to do more with less. And we've always been challenged by a torrid wave of investment ask from the business, because our clients are demanding more. The candidates are expecting a very different experience, a better experience from us. So I think the way I look at it is being nimble and agile. That is the key to the technology organization. We have to follow the principles of be right upfront and demand better services from our service providers. Be prudent in terms of how we are spending the OpEx that we have, and most importantly is focus on building a very strong relationship with the business, because that allows us to be very relevant to what we deliver as a service to our businesses as well.
And Jethwa at Digiterre, when we take those words nimble and agile, we're not just talking about agile in the kind of formal business sense. It's the real sense of being able to move quickly and intelligently and make decisions that make sense and make the most of resources.
I'm so glad you said that, Keme. So that's really close to my heart in terms of most organizations now realize that they're complex adaptive systems and they're learning organizations. They're going to change. So being reactive to the environment, adapting to themselves to the new normal that we find ourselves in, those are the kind of things that we have to do. Just to kind of visit that point about Anand, we kind of have to do things around technology and business being close together. However, I think we have to kind of also break down that division between technology and the business. Most businesses now have to come to realize the fact that they are technology businesses and that they are data organizations as well. So there is less of a division. In fact, the business strategy is exactly the same as a technology strategy and the data strategy. And that is one of what we were saying earlier about being nimble, about being agile, and reacting to the change you find yourself in the environment.
And Miao at GOP, obviously your experience spans consumer and finance. Are the challenges similar?
Yeah, the challenge is very similar. I think now the challenge is basically how you use limited amount of investment to deliver the most value to the business. So there are a few key learnings there. One is really make sure that every single technology project you actually focus on deliver value to the business. If there's no value added, please don't do that project. The second one is really change a way of deliver project. The traditional IT projects takes years to deliver because you need change the business processes, you need the business resources to be involved. But the new way of doing that through agile development, DevOps, that can significantly shorten the time of project delivery. The other area, I think, basically we're, at least as a company, we're looking at is the adoption of new technology. For example, recently we are looking at earlier pilot of adoption of AI technology, GPT technology, et cetera, to make sure that we actually drive efficiency and effectiveness across organization, truly deliver the value, so that the agile organization is not just agile in IT, but truly agile in all the areas of the business.
And I'm really glad you mentioned AI, because I do want to come back to that, because it's clearly the issue, the kind of front of everyone's mind at the moment. Laura, IPG Mediabrands, managing your organization it's a large group with lots of subsidiary companies. How on earth, I mean, when you listen to colleagues here talking about synergy, long-term strategic plans, when you've got so many legacy systems that you're trying to get on the right path, on the same path, I mean, my head's just boils thinking about it.
Yeah, it's complex, but it has been a fantastic opportunity. I think we were saying earlier, I see the fact that the board and the senior leadership team are having to look at this complex global organisation and figure out how to do more with less means that I have the opportunity to look at where there are synergies, where there are consolidations. It gives me a seat at the table to say, look, we've got 50 different social listening tools. We can probably, get it down to at least 2. And how do we do that? And how do we do that in a way that still makes sure that we're winning with our clients? So I think the opportunity for IT and technology leaders is that whereas before there might have been just invest in this solution, buy this, do this, you get to have more involvement in investing in the right projects. And that, for me, it's small things like looking at what's the overall investment. Often CEOs or CEOs will look at the licensing cost, or it's going to cost X for a project. They don't look at the full end-to-end operating cost to implement it and support it. So I'm having those conversations to say it's really important to make the right investment decisions, and also taking the opportunity to look where we can consolidate and make our kind of application estate more enterprise, because everybody is looking at opportunities to do more with less. And we're also looking at opportunities for AI, ChatGPT, and kind of digitizing the way we work. The other thing we're doing is removing joyless work. So the great opportunity for that is, where does automation help us to take away some of the work that is, increasing churn and people aren't enjoying? So for me, there's lots of opportunities that come with this kind of challenge that we've all got.
Removing joyless work sounds like a winner.
It's like, now I want to do more
like
of the
that
boring
term.
stuff. Thank you
I
very
like
much.
that term. I used to use low value. I'm going to use joyless. I like joyless.
It's a bit more emotive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's a bit more
for sure.
connects with the business a bit more.
Ravi, at Box, this is about innovation, isn't it? But is that easier said than done?
Always easier said than done, particularly in when we're in a downturn. I think there's the initial reaction is to pull back, right? And to think, okay, I need to stop spending, or I need to hold back spending and put things on hold. And I think it's been said before, it's an opportunity. I think it's really an opportunity to innovate where it makes sense, and ensuring that you're maximizing every dollar or pound that you're investing in your technology and getting the fullest potential. It's also an opportunity to clean up, right, and to do the things that when everything is focused on growth, and you're kind of refocusing on profitability, which I think we should always be focused on. But now you may have the opportunity to start setting the landscape for when things do return and when the bounce backs occurs. You can actually leapfrog, right? So focus on opportunities to increase current business channels, potentially open up new business channels. M&A, an opportunity, right? Again, as people are pulling and holding on to money, the opportunity to be very surgical and selectively invest in those opportunities that will allow you to leapfrog once the bounce back occurs.
What would a real world example of that be, of taking the brave decision and the playing?
So you mentioned AI earlier. Box AI. So this is kind of I think an opportunity for us where we can leapfrog, and based on what we do, Box being the cloud content platform, having the most sensitive and the most important data for 68% plus of the Fortune 500, that content, AI is going to massively help our customers unlock the potential of that content even more than what they're getting today.
Yeah, AI, how is that showing up then in finance?
I think in many areas. I can give a few examples. So one of them is cognitive search. The problem we're solving, I think many organizations, is when you're trying to how to find the right information at in a speedy time. But then this is a challenge. Through AI, we can tremendously shorten the time for people, so they can just have the right information and data at their fingertip. There are other initiatives. For example, traditionally, the finance team writes summaries, right, on a regular basis to the leadership team. With potentially using GPT technology, we can automate the writing of summary.
The first draft.
The first draft, yeah. You still need human, by the way.
Has to be human intervention.
I want to
before, yeah.
reiterate, you still need human, because you have to, at the moment, you have to check the quality and the accuracy of the summary. But in summary, it's basically traditionally it takes 2 days, for some companies, weeks to write summary. Now, literally, just take a few seconds, right? We have seen that. It's amazing.
And another example of removing the joyless work, perhaps. And Raj, you were nodding ferociously as Miao was describing, and for you, because obviously you provide digital solutions for lots of different clients, right?
That's correct. So you're seeing this wave of disruption happening with engineering right now as well. And it's been really interesting because if you think about financial services, banking, energy trading, commodities, these are highly regulated industries. And you have, they're government backed, there can be utilities, and if they fail, there is a massive consequence. You lose money, you lose power, you lose you're not just able to function. And so typically these organizations have been very slow to innovate, very slow to change. So the surprising thing is the speed of adoption when it has come to AI and large language models, and not just ChatGPT, just even thinking about what comes next. And I'm talking about the wave of open source technology that's coming out now based on a leak of a model called Llama a few weeks ago, which is a really interesting play. And that industry is now really opening up, and those organizations are taking notice. In the engineering world, you're seeing ChatGPT being used for creating data sets that can be used for testing and back testing of systems, as well as things like mining into user requirements and getting value, as well as all the documentation stuff.
And again, your global perspective, Ankur, how do you see AI being useful in extracting value or driving efficiencies in a downturn?
See, I think what it automates is the regular administrative work and allows the people to do more effort around building relationship with our clients, our people who we do the business with, our employees. And a good example is, for example, when we get a job order to create a job description. We have now piloted an example where we use ChatGPT to create a job description on its own, with a certain keywords, which is reviewed by our expert. And the next step is effectively generating the questions for the interview as well, with the right potential answers. That is effectively enabling and helping the human to move to the next level of productivity.
And let us not forget that humans sit at the core of all of these businesses.
Yeah.
And we ignore psychology and the experience of work at our peril. So Laura, just back to this brilliant theme of removing the joyless work. Downturn, it's stressful. Yes. Especially in you may be working in an organization where there is potential or risk of teams getting smaller and increased workloads. How do you keep the human energized and motivated?
It's a really good question. I think it is around making sure that you're communicating all the time about where the opportunities are and allowing people, particularly technical people, to get involved with projects that are exciting. And for the business, it's about showing how we can make their lives easier through some of this automation and allow them to focus, like I was saying, on the clients, on the things that differentiate us, the things that are going to win us business. And as teams are streamlining, or if you are looking at hubbing or offshoring or other opportunities like that, I think it's about making sure that you're creating opportunities for people, career-wise, development-wise, that retains them, because we're not, the human aspect of what we do is critical, particularly in our business. It's about relationship building with clients. So the opportunities are there to get people to focus on other areas where we can automate and remove. Spending, if you're a young person that wants to learn about marketing, you don't want to be sitting there in Excel 9 hours a day trying to work out media plans. If we've got a way to do that effectively, then that's actually going to increase their enjoyment in work. And I think although team sizes might be reducing, if you can find opportunities to streamline, the work itself becomes more interesting. So, but I think it's about communicating that to everybody in the business, because it's very easy for people to get anxious or, you know, see threats where there aren't threats actually about where technology might be taking the business.
And it's very hard to be creative if you're in a creative industry that uses technology.
Correct.
It's very hard to be creative if you're scared.
Yes, exactly. And there is fear. You know, there's a lot of fear. You know, particularly on AI and, you know, open source, and, you know, the best brains in the world are trying to figure out, you know, there are threats, but there are also, you know, masses of opportunity. And I think getting rid of some of that fear, we're starting small. We're looking at use cases for the you know, creative agencies, partnering with Google, partnering with Microsoft, saying, look, we want to see if we can do this. You know, can you help us do that? And we've got an emerging technology function where people can get involved. There's a steering group. We can have champions in each of the areas, and so it's creating that involvement, I think, because if people feel it's happening over there and they're not involved in it, it can be quite scary. So I think opening it up and saying, if you're interested, you don't have to be in IT or technology. If you're interested in understanding what we're doing, there's this steering group in this country, in this market, you can get involved.
And Ravi, how do we make sure that the leadership does understand the challenges that middle management and frontline team members are experiencing in a downturn? How do we make sure that communication exists and people get it and people aren't being asked to do things that are unreasonable or impossible?
Or joyless?
Or joyless.
I love this question because it does come back to people, right? And as, you know, business leaders with a technology focus, sometimes you can get lost in the technology and forget about the people aspect. And because we're constantly asked to do more with less and less with nothing, all right, that like the kind of frothiness of just that activity, you can lose the people aspect. And so communication, absolutely key, right? Vertically, horizontally, making sure you understand that there and ensure that there is alignment, that people know what they're working on. It's clear, it's defined, you know, from top all the way to the bottom, and understanding that every objective that is defined at the top is exponentially increased in terms of activity as it moves through the organization. So having kind of that perspective and understanding that, you know, the success of a particular objective of initiative depends on the people being aligned, and understanding that that's the focus and that's the prioritization is essential. And I frequently use maniacal prioritization and constant prioritization, right? Constantly looking and culling your, you know, the backlog and making sure, and I think Miao made the point earlier, if the value isn't there, okay, put it on the back burner. Let's not focus on it, and let's make sure everybody understands that we're not going to focus on that.
And what about the other way? What about leadership listening, you know,
you have
listening
to listen.
and being curious and making time to go and
absolutely
ask the questions?
Have to be curious. Have to be curious. Have to connect with the organization. Have to ask, you know, to understand if there is alignment. What are you working on? Do you enjoy working on it?
And being open to encouraging people to give honest, rather than
be safe.
It's very easy to turn up, do your job because you lose the will to live, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't tell the truth.
Yeah. And I think the response has to be genuine as well. When you get the feedback, right? And in particular, if it's feedback that can be maybe it's, you know, negative in terms of perspective, or it's really more constructive, like, hey, I have a difficult time doing my job because I've got 10 things that I'm trying to do and I don't know how to prioritize. Listening to that and then taking action to show that, okay, I hear you, that is going to energize your base. That, you know, that is going to show your folks that, yes, okay, leadership is listening, we understand, and we are connecting with you. And I think that's having that connection and that communication, and celebrating the successes as well, showing people that, yes, you are important. I'm going to celebrate your success, not just within, you know, my own team or department, but organizational wide.
Yao, you have worked all over the world, and business work cultures differ greatly. You're in Singapore at the moment. Do you see a necessary difference in the way that the tech is managed in a downturn? Does it require a different approach in different places?
Yes, absolutely. So despite, obviously there is a nuance across different cities and different regions, but I do think the overtrend is the whole tech industry is going through a downturn as well as a lot of challenge. I think one of the key things is, it used to be a buzzword, right? Just look at COVID time, who doesn't talk about digital transformation? But then I think the high peak of investment has gone. So now the key thing is how we use limited resources as well as money to create the most of innovation. So that is a common theme I see across the board in all the major places all over the world. I do think the companies and the specific tech sector have to take a different approach nowadays. Traditional approach is putting a lot of resource to build a new product and then launch it. But I think now the approach has to be, you look at what is most value added, what is the most important digital product to different industry and launch it, strategically. I think that's basically the fundamental approach the tech sector has to take.
And Raj, in the last 18 months, have you been, what have you been surprised by? What has come across and you've thought, oh, I didn't expect that to, in terms of kind of responding to what Miao was saying, what do you think is working in a way that perhaps no one predicted before?
Quite a lot. I think the number one thing is that organizations have now wised up to the fact that they're interconnected, right? So especially the last few years, we've got supply chain shocks. We've got COVID, which is an economic crisis wrapped up in a health crisis. You've got war in Ukraine. And suddenly you realize that the traditional way of doing things just doesn't work. So yeah, I can launch a product, but what if a company that I'm reliant on starts failing, right? What am I actually dependent on? So that's the number one thing I'm finding with organizations. Now realizing that there's collaboration at play, both externally and internally, which is a good way of managing downturn because I think a lot of organizations have departments that kind of look at budgets from a parochial point of view and say, okay, marketing's going to do this, and sales is going to do that, and finance will do this. But actually, are there things that can resonate across the entire organization? So again, doing more with less. And one of the things that's been really heartening to see is open strategy. So we talk a lot about the people side, but now we're shifting from strategy being this kind of management offsite that happens once a year in a nice hotel to actually happening every single quarter at all levels. So empowering people to be able to have strategic conversations amongst themselves and present to each other. And then as a management team going, well, let's take the best of these ideas, celebrate successes as we already said, and then feedback and then make that part of a cyclical strategy because the best information comes from those who are closest to the problem. So the best solutions come from those people at the coalface. They call it Gemba in lean manufacturing, going to the ground, understanding what's at play, and then taking the ideas from there.
You're again nodding wildly.
Just to add to that, I think just to extend to Raj's point, there is now, with all these investments that we have done on technology and the advanced tech stack that we have, there is a symbiotic relationship between the business and the tech stack. I go back to my days in Citibank, when I was running the EMEA banking operations. When we have to delight our customers on our account opening process, there were many tweaks that I could do in the operations without relying on technology. Today, every single aspect of my process is linked to the technology, which means the leadership, whether it is from a technology, whether it is operations, business, has to have a laser-sharp focus on adoption and the usage of the platforms. And I think as technology leaders, we play a very important role because we can provide that data insights to our operations to see how they can elevate the usage and the adoption of the platforms to the next level. I think that's where you start seeing the value coming back. And the business demand gets more focused towards the tangible benefits than the broader benefits.
I'm glad you brought it back to leadership.
Yeah.
What would you say your biggest learning has been in your leadership career at Ankur?
My biggest learning has been that the the benefits of the platform or the investment that we are doing has to go along with the project as well. So you have to have a full 360-degree view in terms of that while you're delivering the project, you need to have a full business plan around how you're going to deliver the value of that investment as well. Otherwise, we'll just keep sitting with a bloated balance sheet with half the value of the payback that we expected. So that's my learning. We started late. We could have started long back earlier.
Ravi? Sorry. Raj. Apologies.
We can swap places, Ravi. It's all about the people. I think we know that. It's all about the people. And leadership will make it or break it. So definitely in the downturn, you want to shift from extrinsic motivational factors to intrinsic motivational factors. So creating that psychological safety as leaders so that people can come forward. Having that autonomy, mastery, and purpose, so people can take accountability for their own actions. They've got some progression that they can make in a particular competency or a skill, and they actually know how it's connected with the vision of the company. They know why their work matters. All of these things are free. All of these things we can do, and that's the best thing about a crisis. It makes you focus on all the things you should have been doing anyway. The good news is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So there's still things we can do today.
Yao, all about the people?
I think it's about people. The other one, I think, is about learning agility. So, what happened in the last 3 years across the whole world means for us that everybody needs to have learning agility, learn what's new in the technology space, but also to learn how to adapt the new things quickly, especially during the crisis. I think that is a core of the organizations. The second one I learned is communication. So in the end, when we talk about people, it's all about communicate, and community in our own way to make sure that every level of the organization understand the company mission and vision. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes, it's basic. You talk, you think people understand, but then people don't understand because they have their own stuff to deal with on their day-to-day job and day-to-day life. So it's all about how you actually put through the right message across organizations so that everybody understand and everybody appreciate the vision.
Laura?
Yeah, echo all of that. The people, I think what I've learned is, it sounds obvious, but putting the right people in the right jobs is critical. Even technology's moved on at such a pace, technology and business interline, but when you've been a leader for a number of years, you can identify if somebody's not energized and not motivated, they're probably not focusing on the right thing. So should be doing more back office or development, or should they be doing emerging tech, or should they be process? And actually identifying that quickly and putting people in the right places is absolutely fundamental. And I think pivoting and more quickly, I think what I've learned with big transformation projects is sometimes you can see something's not happening in the right way, but you go, I'll give it, the data migration isn't happening, okay, I'll give it a few more months, I think echoing actually what Miao was saying, you have to make those decisions quicker now. If something's not working, you have to be able to pivot, even if that means changing resource or investment to get the right outcome. So I think as leaders it's a bit of instinct, it's also data, making those right decisions at the right time is fundamental.
Which also underlines that Ankur's point, right?
Yeah.
Ravi, the last word.
So I guess in a little bit of drinking my own champagne, I listened, and I'm just going to take the best of everything. The business strategy, double down on people, communication, and decision-making, quick decision-making. I think all of that, relationships matter, people matter. And then I'll just add, as I said earlier, maniacal prioritization. Focus on the things that are bringing the most value.
And there you have it, our wonderful panel. You've been watching Transforming in a Downturn. I'm Keme Nzerem. This is The Studio, and I hope you got as much from that discussion as I did.